There
people
are
can
some,
go out,
but if you
and you
look
know
at how
over
small
time
the
you can bring 5
community
in and
is.
5 out. Will you admit that the budget is out of control and that Trump did absolutely nothing? Will you admit that? Will you admit that the budget is out of control and Trump did not? He
Piers,
failed completely.
how long have you and I
on the
been
Big
doing
Beautiful
TV
Bill.
together?
A long
How
time.
many times have I
He won't
complained
admit it. He won't
about
admit it.
government spending? I
No,
listen
it's
to what
not
I'm saying.
government spending. It's Donald Trump.
A woman called Kylie Jane Kramer posted on X, I've been trying to wrap my head around how the flooding in Texas became so devastating so quickly. Why not evacuate? Then I saw this. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said the Guadalupe River rose 26 feet in just 46 minutes around 4 a.m. That doesn't even seem natural. To which you reposted this and you put your own words. I heard God killed those kids because they were using NordVPN, promo code Destiny, to get around the Texas porn ban. On reflection, do you think that was grotesquely tasteless thing to be posting?
Absolutely not. The hand wringing here. Oh my God! Stop. If you want to talk about dead children, then you should talk about the residents of Kerr County who rejected using ARPA funds to build the very siren system that Ted Cruz was over here virtue signaling about. Now that the kids are dead, last I checked, the siren system isn't bringing anybody back to life. Okay, the very same system that they could have built for the better part of the last decade. They didn't want to touch those ARPA funds because they thought that if they did, Biden would go and steal their homes, which is the exact same lie that was told in North Carolina when people were rejecting FEMA funds because they thought that if the government was giving them money for their houses, they'd steal it. If you want to talk about grotesque and ghoulish things that are being said,
it's what you put online. I agree with you. It's what you wrote online. It is grotesque. It's disgusting. But I mean, I guess that's what you do.
How long have people like you told us that if we spend less money in Ukraine, you guys are going to spend more money investing in things like infrastructure in the United States? Where is that money going? We just had another massive debt increase. Another massive debt increase for more tax cuts for wealthy people. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
All right, let me get a Ben.
How's that deficit doing?
Don't talk over each other.
How's our deficit doing? Is it going up or down?
Don't talk over each other. But just to be clear, Destiny, you
there
don't.
No answers.
Just to be clear, Destiny.
I'm going to talk.
Please stop talking.
I'm not going to sit here and argue about jokes when these guys are spreading lies that are leading to the actual destruction of these. Oh, except you guys do when it happens in LA when it's about the wildfires. You guys make jokes when politicians are getting killed in Minnesota.
Go look at my ex
account. Just the rest of your party is. Just the rest of your party is.
Don't talk over each other because we can't hear you.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
All right. But Destiny, just to be clear, you don't regret posting. I heard God kill those kids because they were using NordVPN
I'm not going to sit here and argue about jokes on Twitter while you allow the very same misinformation to spread on this program that leads to people not putting up siren systems, okay, because they think that Biden is going to go steal their homes.
That wasn't my question.
I think it is absolutely insane.
Wasn't my question.
I think it's insane that you want to go and hand-wring liberals over jokes that are not even half as crazy as some of the things these conservatives say.
Okay, but just to be clear, you don't regret doing it.
There's no tweet like that out there.
Just to be clear, Destiny,
absolutely not.
Just to be clear, you don't regret posting it.
No, absolutely.
Okay, Ben Ferguson.
Piers, a couple of things here that I think there's proper information that should get out there. This is an area that I go to often. It's an area that I've taken my kids dozens and dozens of times. It's a very small rural community. When it rains there's always flooding because there's a lot of rock in the ground and the water doesn't absorb in the ground. So you have flash floodings that happen very quickly. I've been there when this happens. This was a once in a lifetime 100-year flood. If you want to know about the funding for the system, it's an extremely small community, and the price tag for it is very, very big compared to the tax base that they have in this small community. It is not because of the Matt Boone stuff this guy's talking about. That is not why the community decided 6 years ago to not do it, even though they wanted to. It was a cost issue. What's going to happen now is you're going to have state funds and federal funds, and that system will happen. But go back to this once in a lifetime flood that took place. No one could have prepared or thought this was going to happen. People bought homes on a river where there was constant flooding, where they're built high enough up that flooding has never gotten there before in the history of their lifetime. So this is a tragedy that took place. And by the way, this is personal because I know people who lost children. There are funerals that are taking place.
Just to be clear, you're saying that there are
talking about a funeral for a second?
You're saying
let him finish,
like 15 times. So you're saying there are no citizens saying that they don't want to use the American Rescue Plan funds. They didn't want to use that money because they thought Biden would take their homes.
I'm going to go back to what I said.
That transcript doesn't exist.
But can
Yes,
you
can I
let
go back
Ben
to our
finish,
side?
given
You're
he
an
was talking
actual
about
ghoul.
the funerals
What is
of
this? What
dead
is this?
children?
I have friends whose kids
Please let
died.
him
You don't
finish
care.
what he was saying.
He doesn't care. As long as he admits he doesn't give a fuck about the dead kids. That's okay.
You know
As long
what,
as he doesn't
Destiny?
care,
You don't give a
admit it.
fuck about the
Admit
dead
it.
kids, do you?
Admit it. I do.
Because you thought it was
actually fund
funny.
these things.
You thought it
Because
was
I'm not
funny.
the one voting to take money away
You
from these
thought it
things.
was
I think
funny
it's
to go on
fun-
X and talk about,
Piers,
I heard God killed those kids because they weren't using a NordVPN to get around the Texas porn ban.
From the
That is
party of I
disgusting.
thought comedy was
You're
legal
the one
again.
using dead
Jokes
children
on
in a
Twitter
grotesque
don't kill
manner.
people.
So let me just lay
Jokes
that down
on
for the
Twitter,
record.
just to be clear, let me lay it down as well. How many people did my joke kill?
No,
You're
it's just
sick, man.
disgustingly tasteless.
Exactly.
You're a
Wait a minute.
sick man.
And then how many kids died because there's no siren system because people like this guy over here made up the lie that Biden was going to steal your homes if
I
you
never
accept the
made the lie
American
up,
Rescue
you
Plan.
asshole.
If you accept American Rescue Plan money. Exactly.
I never
That's
made
the
that
difference.
up.
The difference is
I
you're
would
old.
like to
The
hear
difference is
Ben.
that-
I would
the
like to
difference is
hear
that-
Ben
Yeah, that's
finish the
exactly.
story he was telling us when he was talking about the funerals of dead children. So let him
go
finish
back.
We didn't
that,
have to.
please.
What do you mean? We didn't have the funerals. Wouldn't that
Can
be
we-
better?
can
if
we
the people
mute him?
didn't die
Rather
in the
than you
first place?
talking about
Can
why
we
you
just
were right
mute
to
him?
crack a sick joke. Ben.
Okay. I go back to the point here. This flood did not ask if you were liberal or conservative, rich or poor, black or white, or anything else in between. People lost their lives, and many people lost their lives trying to save kids in an unprecedented flood. If we could go back, I'm sure this community would have said, we'll figure out a way to have the money. You're dealing with an area that has a lot of volunteer first responders and firefighters. Can I finish, please? Like maybe you'll learn something and not be such a tool.
You just lie.
You don't live there. You don't know. You've never been there. I've been there. I've talked to people. You don't know anybody that died in this flood. You're a POS. That's who you are. I would like to finish my point, Piers.
Finish it, Ben.
Thank you. There are people that died in this flood helping try to save the lives of others. There are elderly that died. I know people that lost children in this flood. They would love to go back and have a different warning system. By the way, we don't know if the warning system would have changed anything at all. The warnings came out early. Unfortunately, there's spotty cell phone there. Everyone's talked about this. I'm sure there's people in the community that wish they would have maybe done something different in the past. Hindsight's 2020. But to say that the community decided not to do this because of some insane theory you've come up with, which is not true or based in fact. It was based on a small rural community with not a lot of tax base and a very expensive price tag for something. And for you to sit here and to somehow decide that this is a place to say something so sick. I'm assuming you don't have kids. I have 6-year-old and 8-year-old kids. If you talk to parents that are planning their child's funerals are happening tomorrow and the next day here in Houston, I think you would have a little bit of a soul and a heart for them. But instead, you're out here putting this crap out there. And it's really sad. I hope you get help.
Let me bring in Brian. Brian, I want to talk just about a wider point connected to what Destiny posted, for which he shows no regret at all, which is entirely his choice. But I can say my feelings, which I have. You know, a former appointee to a Houston city board said that Camp Mystic, where most of these poor young girls were at the time, was white-only, conservative and Christian, said Sade Perkins, a former member of the Houston Food Insecurity Board, said in a TikTok video. So take a look.
I know I'm probably going to get canceled for this, but Camp Mystic is a whites-only girls Christian camp. They don't even have a token Asian. They don't have a token black person. If this were a group of Hispanic girls out there, this would not be getting this type of coverage that they're getting. No one would give a f***. And all these white people, the parents of these little girls, would be saying things like they need to be deported.
Now, A, I think that's completely untrue, what she said. B, it's completely disgusting to say that in the aftermath of this when these poor girls, many of them are still missing, presumed dead. But then there's a paediatrician called Dr. Christina B. Probst, who's been fired after posting on social media. She's a paediatrician, this woman. May all visitors, children, non-MAGA voters and pets be safe and dry. Kerr County MAGA voted to get FEMA. They deny climate change. May they get what they voted for. Bless their hearts. And my question, Brian, putting that together with what Destiny posted, which again, for the record, I thought was disgusting. Destiny, I've told you. You can defend it as much as you like, but it was just a sick, awful thing to post. And if you had any humanity about you, you would delete it. But that's entirely your decision. But Brian, I've seen this on the other side too. I've seen this during the Biden administration when terrible things happen, that there's a race for people to get political, to play a race card or play this card or play that card, or just show a shocking inhumanity. And it's the very worst of society when that happens. What do we do about this? I think it's fueled by social media. People wouldn't be able to get the audience for this kind of thing without TikTok, without Facebook, without X and so on. But it's a sick thing that this goes on when these terrible tragedies happen.
Look, I obviously can't speak for what some random person on the internet tweeted about Camp Mystic. All I can say is look, I try to have some sense of the fact that there are as many Republicans in California as there are in Texas, and there are as many Democrats in Texas as there are in major big blue bastions. And so I try to focus on that and recognize that a lot of these people are a lot of these people are fighting against the same system that I would be fighting against, and I wouldn't obviously not attack folks in Texas, but I would point out that Ben said that these storms aren't partisan, and that we have to try. I can't remember what Ben said, but the reality is that while the wildfires were raging in California, Ben and Ted had a podcast where they just attacked Governor Newsom and Karen Bass, and that was while the fires were still raging. And so, spare us the grandstanding and the virtue signaling about how this stuff doesn't get partisan. This was here's Ted Cruz's tweet. Right now, everyone is horrified watching the LA wildfires. In today's episode of Verdict, we break down the catastrophic policy decisions made by Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass. While the wildfires were still raging in Los Angeles, while I was standing on my roof in LA, spraying down my house with a hose to make sure that my house wouldn't set on fire when the fire was down the street within 1 mile of my house.
Did you listen to the show?
And so Ted Cruz decided to come out and make make his entire episode, which, by the way, there is not.
So I'll tell you what we said, because I was on that show.
Excuse me, let him finish. We were crying so much about people interrupting. Let him finish.
I know. Ben is arguing for destiny.
You said we did a show. You're putting words in our mouth of something we didn't say.
I read the tweet verbatim. That's what I did.
Did you listen to the show? No,
I didn't.
So I'll tell you what we did.
Did you watch the Lifetime movie? Did you see the documentary?
What we did was we talked about the decisions that were made.
There's not a situation where Ted Cruz will not.
Well, let Ben say what he thinks he said. Let's listen to Ben.
I'll redo the show in a very quick form. What we talked about were the decisions that were made with underbrush not being cleared out and the massive warnings that were coming. We also talked about what the fire chief said about those warnings. We talked about the lack of water pressure. We talked about them cleaning up some of the holding tanks. We talked about also the fact that there were certain things that were done to save fish over having the ability to fight these types of fires and everything that went into it. We talked about the decisions that were made that then made for a poor response that made you have to be on your roof, as you described it, spraying down because there wasn't adequate decisions that were made with those winds that came through with the underbrush.
You think the reason that I was on my roof was because while the Santa Ana winds were ripping through LA at 100 miles per hour and 50,000 acres of LA were burning, that some bogus fucking story about the smelt, about Delta smelt is why LA was burning? You're a joke, bro. You have no idea what you were talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm quoting the people in your government in California.
There is no amount of water pressure in the world through these hydrants that are going to be able to put out 50,000 acres of fire.
Yes,
you did. You're talking about smelt, and you're talking about no water pressure.
I didn't say that. If you turn on every hydrant, you lose water pressure. That's not what I said, by the way.
Let me grant you the larger point, though, and I think the point that you're trying to make, I'll grant you this, even though you don't deserve it, and you're just going to spew a bunch of bullshit about smelt and water pressure.
Okay, brother.
But let me grant you the larger point and say that there are still things that people could do. And I'm not here to argue that California did a perfect job or does a perfect job with regard to how they manage all of this stuff. But to that point then, do you think it's maybe a little stupid that Trump would fire 10% of NOAA's workforce, which is about 1,300 staffers and researchers? Do you think it's a good idea then that Trump called for reducing NOAA's workforce by a further 17%, which would be another 2,000 staffers and researchers? Do you think it's a good idea that Trump slashed 20% of FEMA's workforce?
Yeah,
do you think it's a smart idea to phase out FEMA completely? Do you think it's a smart idea that 25% of NWS's stations lack a meteorologist?
Okay.
All of this stuff is
so let's go back to the basics here. If you're asking about the size of government and the president making a decision to reduce the size of government when it makes sense, I have no issue with that. By the way, the staffing and the lies that were put out by many on the left and the media was that there was understaffing when it came to the warnings that were coming out from the National Weather Service. That was a lie. They were staffed above normal staffing levels. They held people over the day before and the night of the storm in Texas. They had double the staff on staff when the storms were hitting. There's a timeline of all the texts that were going out and the warnings that were going out. And so you're acting as if Donald Trump caused a problem with the flood and the response to it in the warning system, which is a lie. When you have double the staff, which is the protocol, by the way, under Obama, under Biden, and under George Bush. So this is nonpartisan, and everyone showed up for work, and people were held over. You're now just trying to score political points on the lives of dead children for political reasons.
Okay, let me ask. Hang on. Let me bring in Natalie because it should be waiting patiently. Natalie, when I read out what Destiny posted there, what was your feeling about that?
Well, I think that's probably the textbook definition of what it means to be a grifter, trying to profit off of dead children by pumping NordVPN and your promo code. It's reprehensible. I'm pretty sure you're an atheist. You don't believe in God. You certainly don't believe in traditional marriage. So I would expect nothing less that you would double down and defend it. Blows my mind. I mean, I agree comedy's important, but I don't think, no offense, maybe shouldn't be a stand-up comedian if you want to start your career by posting about dead children. It's really not all that funny. And it really wasn't even a joke. You were trying to profit off of it. So I think that's sort of a compounding evilness to what you did.
What do we do, Natalie?
So real quick, for compounding evilness, just so I could read this because entered into the record, okay? I'm just curious if Ben wants to say, is this quote fake, okay? So there's hundreds of these quotes, all right? At a county meeting, okay, where the citizens are giving feedback on whether or not they should use the American Rescue Plan funds, all right? Citizen Mr. R says, there's not just a lack of transparency, but the Biden administration is pulling the wool over our eyes. If we see what's actually written, we make a clear decision. This is wrong. Texas has been going in the right direction. I moved from Washington State a year ago. Washington is just falling lockstep with whatever this admin wants to do, and we're watching with clarity the damage. As far as COVID and the recovery money, the majority of the damage has been caused by the government. We're doing well. I'm a retired firefighter. EMS, I love law enforcement. So do no harm is going by the wayside. Let me finish one more sentence. Do no harm is going by the wayside from, we're all familiar with that and it's heartfelt, but it's going by the wayside for now what would be money that would go against everything that we believe. Whatever good is in it, I don't want it. Are you telling me that comment and the hundreds of others like it are fake? Can you give me a yes or no before you ramble about whatever irrelevant stuff is? Are those comments fake?
I'm going to go back to what I want to say. You said what you said. I'm going to say it.
Answer.
Number one,
this is why you debate kids on college campuses.
I'm answering the damn question, dude. Like, just chill for a second. Drink whatever hemp juice or that is. Okay,
keep going.
All right. So number one, that's one person. Number two, if you weren't so dumb, if you weren't so dumb, if you weren't so dumb,
find another one if you want.
If you weren't good, you found two. If you weren't so dumb, go Google the size.
You think they don't exist?
Go Google the size of the Comfort, Texas City Hall. You can't fit hundreds of people in any meeting there, you moron. You found one. You act like there's thousands that showed up. They did not show up and say that on the record. Are there people that said things on the internet?
And then the people can go out.
But if you look at how small the community is,
and 5 out. If you see a room that can only fit 10 people, did you know that 100 people can fit in that room if 10 go in and 10 leave? Do we forget this stuff?
Again, if you understood the size of the town, which you don't because you don't care because you're literally trying to make money off of dead people,
You're the
Kerrville,
one who's
Texas,
getting kids
you
killed,
would
and I can't
know
wait for the
that
next
this
once
is an
in a
insane
lifetime
thing that you're
disaster in
saying.
Texas.
You
the
moron.
next time the power grid freezes, the next time another flood happens, and dipshits like you were up here saying,
it's
could we
gotta
have ever
suck
seen it
to
coming?
make a living
But hey, you know
selling
what?
this shit
At least
online.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is out
It's
here
gotta
proposing
be a miserable
legislation
life.
to stop the Jews from putting clouds in the sky. So thank God we have you guys working hard on the problem, okay, to stop
Piers,
the weather
how do you
modification
find
program
these people?
from Bill Gates. Thank
You stay
God.
up till
Thank you.
3
Thank you
a.m.
so
and
much.
watch the internet?
Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
Okay, Brian. Let's just talk on a bigger picture about, because it's interesting to me, the whole Epstein thing, for example, I think has been fueled, the sequence of events, by what Elon Musk put on X. And he's now creating a third party. He says he is, the America Party. It's never worked before, but we've never had somebody with his money or social media firepower to drive it. So I don't think it should be dismissed out of hand. How dangerous an enemy can Elon Musk turn out to be for Donald Trump? If, for example, in the midterms, he decides to aggressively support, anti-Trump candidates, for example, and is successful in doing that, and gets some resonance for this party, this third party, and then that moves forward with some momentum to a general election. I mean, how big could this get? What's your feeling about the Musk-Trump meltdown?
I think it could go both ways. You could make the argument that the reason Trump is president right now is because Elon Musk gave him $300 million and campaigned relentlessly in Pennsylvania, for example. So obviously there is a lot of weight that can be given to a candidate by virtue of endless funds. Elon has that. On the flip side, look, I mean, he put forward this threat that he was going to make sure that whoever voted for the big beautiful bill was primaried. They all voted for it except for Thomas Massey and Tom Tillis, and so they were not going to vote for it anyway. I'm sure that Elon's
and Rand
tweet
Paul
and Rand Paul, Elon's tweet had no bearing on any of those three, and so you could also make the argument at the same time that his influence is waning in the Republican Party. I think what's the broader picture though is that this is Elon is somebody who has Elon himself is no white knight here, especially as it relates to Democrats. This is somebody who, predicates so much of his focus on eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse, which, by the way, so do the Republicans, but everyone is full of shit here. Elon had carte blanche, full reign of government with Doge, and instead of going after the biggest agency in government, which has failed 7 audits, which is the Pentagon, he goes after USAID, which is 0.5% of the budget and affords us soft power without firing a single bullet across the world. He goes after the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which saved billions of dollars for 200 million consumers. That is a fraction of the budget. He goes after the EPA, the NLRB, the Department of Labor, the Department of Transportation. Every single agency that had enforcement or fines levied against him are the ones that he focused on. And instead, the Pentagon gets a raise to $1 trillion. So spare us on the grandstanding about reining in reining in the federal deficit. But the same goes for this Republican Party. All of these people, House Freedom Caucus included, predicated so much of their identity on this idea that they were gonna that we have to stop this existential threat that is overspending and saddling our kids and future generations with all of this interest that we're not going to be able to pay off. All these motherfuckers voted for it. All of these people are completely full of shit. They string their people along just like they did with the Epstein situation. They strung all their supporters along with these promises that they're going to be the fiscal responsive, that they're going to be the fiscal conservatives, that they're going to be the adults in the room. They get into office, they explode the deficit because the only priority they have, not Epstein, not lowering costs, not adding jobs, none of that stuff. It is giving themselves a tax cut. That's the only long-standing principle they have. It's all they did in 2017. It's all they're doing right now. Everything else is window dressing to con their supporters, their marks, into thinking that they're going to help them.
All right.
Let me say this about him real quick, Elon Musk, and how this could be an issue. You go back and you look at guys like Jesse Ventura. You go back and you look at Schwarzenegger. You go back and you look at Ross Perot. There is a history that when certain individuals see an opportunity and a third party comes about, that you can be a disruptor. If Elon Musk just wants to be a disruptor, in the midterm elections, there's no doubt he can pull it off. If he's smart about where he plays, if he tries to play nationwide, I think that would fall apart. But look, there's a tight majority in the House, a tight majority in the Senate. The Senate is leaning more towards the Democrats in the upcoming midterm election. It favors them in the election map and who's up. I think Elon Musk, if he wanted to go in there and be a disruptor to Donald Trump, he certainly has the money to do
and
it.
It's not just money.
Right.
It's not just money, because he also has 200 million followers on his own social media platform.
Sure.
Right? And I think that played a big part in how Trump won. I think he got a lot of people to, on a daily basis, Elon Musk was all in on Trump.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think Elon Musk is a really smart guy. I've spent time with him, interviewed him. I think he's probably going to look at this and say, hey, I want to rein in some of these things. I want you to hold true the Republican Party to what you claimed you were going to do, going back to the point that was just made a moment ago by the guest. He wants to make sure that the people that he helped get this power continue to do the right thing more often than they go and do other things. And so this is that shot across the bow.
Yeah.
I understand why he's doing it. It does concern me that you end up blowing up the entire thing and the progress you made. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Destiny, is there anything intrinsically wrong in the concept of a third party? Would it help break the kind of, very long-running, intransigent nature of the American political system?
I mean, with most people, the math problem is that if you create a third party, all you're doing is siphoning votes off from another party that you're more likely to agree with. But Elon might have a special advantage because in 10 or 15 years, it's projected that 50 to 100,000 of his children could vote for him in an election. So maybe that'll swing things a different way,
That is a funny joke, Destiny. You've got it in you. Natalie.
Well, if the Republicans have it their way, if all those kids are in Texas, who knows how many will be gone to natural disasters that could have never been, prevented or screened for or anything else. So there you go. I'll make it offensive.
You know what I felt about the debate part of that was what Senator Cruz told me. I thought was a good way of describing it. He said, look, actually, probably the big problem here, the only thing that might have made any difference is if more people had been able to heed an alarm faster, it might have saved some lives, because it happened so fast and was so devastating. And the truth is, it's in an area with a patchy cell phone. A lot of people wouldn't have got the messages. And had they had a siren system, it might have saved some lives. I imagine they will now all get siren systems. And
Piers, can I ask you a question on that point?
Yeah.
And that is, like, look, notwithstanding the fact that Republicans have spent so much money handing themselves a tax cut, but ICE now has a bigger military, a bigger budget than the IDF, than Brazil's military, than Netherlands military, than Italy's military. If ICE was a military unto itself, it would have the 16th biggest budget in the world. And so think about all of the things that we can do you want to talk about America first? Think about all the things we could do in this country. Like, I don't know, giving a warning system to these folks in rural Texas, for example, who could really benefit from that.
But I don't think they're mutually. Hang on.
Let me finish my sentence. Instead of fucking brown people
I don't think they're mutually
exclusive.
A country like the United States of America is
way bigger than
still
Brazil,
hang on, Ben, is the number one superpower in the world, right? The idea you can't do two things at once, or 10 things at once, or 100 things at once is nuts. Of course,
Excuse me, why is Ben saying that's the same? The Republicans have spent the last 5 years telling us that. You can't spend money in Ukraine, you have to spend it here. You can't spend money on food stamps, you have to spend it on your American people. Every time it comes to cutting programs, every single time it comes to cutting programs, you guys are okay with cutting some programs, but you never want to spend any money on anything else. Will you admit that the budget is out of control and that Trump did absolutely nothing? Will you admit that? Will you admit that the budget is out of control and Trump did not? He failed completely.
How long have you and I been doing TV together?
A long time.
How many times have I complained about government spending?
I know.
Listen to what I'm saying.
Government spending. It's Donald Trump. Your party has a moral failing that they're allocating budget appropriately. You're talking about trying to find kids in Texas while you've got horses galloping across MacArthur Park, paid for by the federal government, Donald Trump's federal government. Will you admit that they failed in controlling the budget?
20 million illegal immigrants. I'm in favor of getting out 20 million illegal immigrants.
Controlling the budget? Did they fail at controlling the budget?
We wouldn't have to spend all that damn money. We wouldn't have to spend all that money if you guys were securing the border.
Do you know something? You know the truth. Do you know the truth?
You won't even answer the question.
Do you know the truth from across the pond? If I may raise a hand, is I think the debt was in 1980 was $1 trillion. and now it's heading towards $40 trillion. And in that time, last time I checked, in that time, there were a lot of Democrat presidents and a lot of Republican presidents. So it may just be, Destiny, this is a problem which both parties,
which both parties have contributed
to.
Who had the last budget surplus? What president was that?
It's got to be Trump.
Why are you laughing? Do you even know how numbers? You didn't even know how time worked.
50 years of Donald Trump, Piers. 50 years of Donald Trump being president. It's all his fault.
All right, I didn't hear a word of it. I want to give the last. Okay, enough.
For anybody listening at home, okay.
Enough. I want to give the last word to Natalie, who's been waiting very patiently. Natalie, last word to you about this issue of Elon, Trump, the deficit, where this all goes, another party. Your quick thoughts.
Well, Elon failed at Doge, not just the $2 trillion to $1 trillion to $9 billion. There should have been criminal referrals and indictments for all of the, scams and schemes that they were talking about. And there wasn't one person, maybe one random USAID contractor sort of on a separate path. Good luck if he wants to start a party with what I think a foreign-born COO of it. He might be getting deported imminently, so it'll be tough running the America Party from South Africa.
Okay, on that note, we will leave it. I'm going to go and have my ears treated by an emergency medic. But thank you all very much. I appreciate it.